Welcome to Lexivia English. Ready to take your English to the next level? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. So sit back, listen carefully, and enjoy the journey.
The breaking point. For many years, Israel lived under constant threat. Rockets flew from Gaza, terror attacks came from Lebanon, and the fear of Iran building a nuclear bomb was always there. Every day was full of tension and worry. Families lived with alarms and sirens. Soldiers stood guard at every checkpoint. The world seemed too fragile. In 2025, everything changed. Satellite photos showed something new, hidden deep underground near the city of Qom in Iran. Mountains protected the facility, hiding it from spies and satellites. Experts said it was the last step. Iran was only weeks away from making its first nuclear warhead. The thought terrified many leaders around the world. Israel had warned the world many times. We will never allow Iran to get nuclear weapons, said the Israeli Prime Minister. But the United Nations talks were slow, and sanctions against Iran did not stop the progress. Time was running out. One cold night, after long secret meetings, Israel made a dangerous decision. In the dark desert, a squadron of jets prepared quietly. They took off without lights, flying low to avoid radar detection. Inside one of the planes was not an ordinary bomb. It was a nuclear weapon, the most powerful explosive the world had seen since 1945. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the bomb was dropped. The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. A massive fireball rose, burning the desert and shaking the earth. The underground facility was gone, destroyed completely. Thousands died instantly. Soldiers, scientists, workers, innocent civilians. The desert was covered in smoke and ash. The world woke up to the horror of the first nuclear strike in the 21st century. No one expected Israel to go this far. Shock and fire. Iran was plunged into chaos. Cities went dark as electricity failed. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded. Smoke and fire covered the skies, and people cried in the streets for their lost loved ones. The pain was everywhere. Iran's leaders appeared on television, their faces full of anger and grief. "This is not defense," they said. "This is a crime against humanity. We will not forget this day." In response, Iran launched everything it had. Ballistic missiles soared towards Israeli cities. Drones flew low and exploded in crowded places. Suicide squads attacked from the shadows. Tel Aviv was hit hard. Fires burned through Haifa, and people in Jerusalem ran to underground shelters. Israel's Iron Dome tried to stop the missiles, but it was overwhelmed. At the same time, Hezbollah in Lebanon fired thousands of rockets into northern Israel. Militias backed by Iran in Syria and Iraq opened new fronts. The small country was suddenly surrounded by enemies on all sides. But Israel was not finished. It responded with fierce airstrikes. Fighter jets attacked targets in Damascus, Beirut, and Baghdad. Explosions lit the night sky. The Middle East was now a blazing war zone. The world reacts. The world watched in horror and disbelief. Cities far from the fighting, London, Berlin, Seoul, held emergency meetings. The news was everywhere. Israel had used a nuclear weapon. Iran had suffered a nuclear attack. The consequences were unimaginable. In many countries, protests erupted. Some people supported Israel, saying it had no choice to defend itself from a deadly threat. Others shouted, "War criminal," and demanded justice for the victims in Iran. The United States stood firmly by Israel's side. "We warned Iran many times," said the US president. "Israel has the right to defend itself." American warships sailed into the Persian Gulf. Fighter jets flew over the region in support. But Russia and China called Israel's attack a red line. They accused the West of trying to use nuclear weapons to control the world. Russia sent weapons to Iran, while China sent fuel, medicine, and military drones to support its ally. A clear divide appeared. The US, United Kingdom, France, and NATO countries backed Israel. Russia, China, and many Muslim nations supported Iran. The world was now deeply divided, on the edge of a dangerous confrontation. The spark becomes a flame. Then came the next disaster. A Russian ship carrying weapons to Iran was bombed near the Strait of Hormuz. Russia blamed the United States and vowed revenge. That very night, a Russian missile struck a NATO base in Turkey. NATO responded by bombing Russian radar and missile sites in Syria. China, watching the chaos, sent warships towards Taiwan. The United States called this a threat to peace and sent more troops and aircraft carriers to the Pacific. North Korea fired test missiles into the sea to show its power. Alliances began to break apart. Old friendships were tested. Every country prepared for the worst. The world held its breath, waiting for a single mistake that could ignite a global war. And then the mistake happened. World War begins. In the skies over the Iraq-Iran border, an American jet locked its radar onto a Russian fighter plane. The Russian pilot, thinking he was under attack, fired first. The explosion killed the American pilot instantly. The news spread like wildfire. The next morning, headlines screamed, "NATO and Russia exchange fire." This was the final straw. NATO declared a state of war with Russia. Russia called on China for support. China blockaded Taiwan and clashed with US forces at sea. India and Pakistan raised their nuclear alert levels. Cyber attacks shut down power grids in Berlin, Tokyo, and New York. The war had spread across 4 continents. What started as one nuclear strike in the Middle East had turned into a global inferno. Nuclear fear returns. People in cities around the world, Paris, Seoul, Cairo, Chicago, rushed to buy canned food, water, and fuel. Shelters were rebuilt. Schools closed. Flights were cancelled. The fear of mushroom clouds returned. For the first time in decades, people asked, "Will the world see nuclear bombs again?" Israel announced it had more nuclear weapons ready if needed. Russia moved tactical nuclear missiles into Belarus. North Korea warned it would strike Japan if attacked. The United States deployed submarines armed with nuclear weapons to secret locations in the oceans. The world stood at the edge of a terrifying abyss. No way back. In the end, no one knows exactly what happened next. Some say world leaders pulled back from the brink, just barely, and after a final, terrible battle, peace talks began. Others believe more nuclear weapons were used in Europe, in Asia, even in major cities like New York and Moscow. But one truth remains: After Israel used a nuclear weapon, everything changed. The world crossed a line it had feared for 80 years. Once that line was crossed, there was no easy way back. Today, every country remembers the fire that once burned, and every person fears the day it might burn again.